And we're live. It is the Marty Fowler Scrum. It is Sam Thomas. Yeah, Thomas, how are things going with you?
Yes, I'm alive and kicking. So over the last few days, I've been fighting and struggling with the Project Unify client, the Ionic client test coverage,
Okay.
different frameworks, Protractor, Jasmine, Karma,
Yep.
test, etc., etc.
Mhm.
It's a living hell. I'm about to write a blog post about the nightmare of JavaScript testing.
Mhm.
I decided that I will get this to work.
Okay.
And I am a very persistent person. When I set my mind to it, I totally understand why people are not testing their JavaScript applications sometimes, because it's a nightmare to set this up. And the stuff that we're used to with automated unit tests, and acceptance tests, and send it off to a service that covers our, measures our test coverage in order to know what the fuck we're doing, and set up continuous integration. That's the basics. In Rails apps, that is 20-minute work, basically. And at this point, I think me and Raul spent like 3 days basically setting that up for the Ionic application. And I totally understand why people are not doing this, because it's apart from just setting this stuff up, the syntax is of course very, very hard. And the Jasmine testing is not as straightforward as writing tests in RSpec or Ibarra, but I can live with that. But to face so many issues while setting it up, it's a nightmare. And so I did a side spike. I got coveralls to work in a Jasmine environment, but not in the Project Unify setting yet. And then of course, even if I get this to work for the unit tests, I need to aggregate the test coverage, using both Protractor and Karma. So as we face those issues sometimes in our Rails applications that coveralls measures RSpec or Cucumber, and to get them to be measured together is a little bit of a challenge, but it's doable. We did that in several projects recently, but here I'm just I'm facing a lot of issues. Very frustrating. Very hard to set this acceptance unit test cycle up and working, basically.
Oh, totally, yeah. Well, and it seems it's clear, as you say, why many JavaScript people. Well, when it's that hard to do it, how many people are actually going to bother?
Because even if you sell them the idea that the test-driven development in whatever shape and form we that it brings some benefits to the table.
Yes.
And all those benefits, we don't have to repeat that, but there are plenty of benefits why you should test.
Sure.
But if you have them sold on the idea and then tell them, yeah, but by the way, it's almost impossible to set this up in your project. So go ahead and spend 2 or 3 days setting that up. Not many people will do that.
No, indeed. I mean, it's an interesting thing. One wonders whether there are some conceptual barriers that if they were addressed, like presumably there are. Well, we don't know that there are some people who are working regularly with JavaScript testing. I mean, the existence of these projects, such as Jasmine and the different ones, make it seem like there are maybe some small group of monks somewhere in the Himalayas who are effectively testing with JavaScript. And if somehow their knowledge could be shared with the rest of us, we would have a breakthrough. I'm not sure. It is interesting. Or maybe it's just, like so much of the JavaScript world, it's new and fresh and the Wild West. Yes, I'm not sure.
So some things that these people seem to take for granted or just accept is like are killing my are very hard to implement in my workflow. Like for instance, if we test with Protractor, so an Ionic app, so you have to start on the Ionic server first in one terminal, and then run the Protractor tests, the runner in another terminal, which is perfectly fine if you want to do it on your local machine. But it's a completely different thing if you want to do it on continuous integration servers.
Sure.
Yeah. So just that very fact took us at least 5-6 hours to set up, because we had to make Semaphore start a server and run Ionic, and then in a different thread, test. Well, not a different thread, but you want to run the Ionic server in the background, and then you run the protractor test. And so we passed that. But now we're facing an issue. So we're using Bower and NPM to manage dependencies, and install fails on Semaphore. So we're just to resolve what version of Angular to install is a hassle. But even once we've had that in place, the equivalent of bundle install, right? Bower is running and timing out over and over and over.
Yes.
So that's it's a nightmare. It's a real nightmare.
Sure. Yeah. Michael tells me that John tells him that Bower has been superseded by NPM, and that people are basically discarding and leaving Bower, and NPM is now the way forward as the bundle of the JavaScript world.
So probably we're gonna make a shift. That's a completely, that's a major rewrite of the application. Because
sure. Yeah. No. Well, that's I mean, it's which is then. I mean, it's one thing for someone to say, oh yes, it's going with this technology rather than that technology now. But actually, the process of migrating to the other one is no trivial thing whatsoever. And in resource constrained environments, it's extremely frustrating. It's interesting that you're saying these things. I was writing a blog post this morning, as I am often, and it was sort of more about pairing. It ended up being about the principles behind the Agile Manifesto, which is an interesting read. It doesn't mention pairing or testing. It ends on this. What I think is the most important or impressive part of it is about the reflecting on how to become more effective, and then tuning and adjust its behavior accordingly. So, I mean, much as I love the acceptance test, unit test cycle, I think that what you have there, although it may feel unpleasant, is a wonderful example to reflect upon how certain processes may not be working with the technology stack, and then working out a new pathway, so to speak.
So I've been there so many times during the last few days, because so I was like thinking for myself in the midst of the frustration, fuck it, I'm just gonna do something else. But the problem is that I've already done something else. I spiked the Ionic application,
right?
And it took me. It was like a time capsule back to year 2000, when I was doing some PHP stuff, and everything. No test, no nothing, and it's like, it doesn't work. It for every new feature that I was developing, I had to start the server, log in, test that. Oh shit, doesn't work. Okay, so I do it?
Yes.
And I don't want to do that because it slows me down. I've come a long way. The application is almost in the MVP state, but I could have reached much further if I had good test coverage and my development with tests. So I don't. Perhaps I'm blind here, but I need those at least the end-to-end testing. The acceptance tests that will kind of tell me that the application does what I want it to do, basically.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, although the other approaches that people I mean, having purely acceptance tests would be one way. There are people who advocate for just having the unit tests and not having the acceptance tests. And I guess there's an argument to say that if setting up the acceptance test is so hard, like it does that pushes you onto the level of effectively there's a manual there. So for example, with the Google Hangouts plugin that we have, as running in this thing now, we have unit tests which are mocked out. We don't have a full end-to-end acceptance test because it would kind of be like the process of like running a live Hangout and
but that example isn't really fair, because you don't have you don't own the interface, right? I mean, the interface is not the part of your project. Like you said, in order to be able to test this with acceptance tests, you would have to start a new Hangout and stuff like that.
Right. But similarly for you with Ionic, you don't own the interface. That the whole thing is running inside ultimately it's running a phone environment, right? It's not about a question of, from my point of view, about whether you own the interface or not. It's about how much time does it take to an effort to get the acceptance test running versus how frequently are you testing it manually anyway. The part of the reason why, for me, we could be pushing to try and have a stronger acceptance test framework for the Hangout connection thing. We've only got unit tests and integration tests. But one of the reasons I don't push it is because we run 20 Hangouts every day, and if there is a problem, we experience it manually. So I mean, I'm saying that if there's a particular problem, another approach to be considered is to say, all right, let's have a few unit tests and go for test coverage and go for CI with them. Maybe that's even too much for the JavaScript setup that you have, who knows? But put aside the end-to-end tests for a while and just go with manual testing for a while and see how that goes, as an approach for a couple of weeks. Anyway, that was it.
I think about it. So both the unit tests and acceptances are equally hard to set up, basically.
Right. So yeah.
But actually, in this case, I would say that Protractor is probably, now that we overcome some obstacles, so Protractor would be actually a little easier to set up now than unit tests.
Maybe so.
Or at least, my gut feeling tells me that it's simpler to write acceptance tests. Because you just, you take the workflow, the flow of the user interaction, and you just, and by, if the result is what you hope for, sure, then the entire stack is working, and
yeah. Well, and hey, I'm a huge fan of acceptance tests. I absolutely love it, and I think I find it probably easier to write acceptance tests. Although there are those who argue that actually, there are some people, crazy though we might call them, who for whom the unit tests are more important. That they're more concerned with the kind of domain model clarity, as supported by unit tests that are factoring. And almost, I get the sense to those people, whether the software actually works for the end user or not is kind of a side. They're not too worried, right? But it's the clarity and the purity of the central model that's
But what makes it hard to make a decision on all of this? I completely hear what you're saying, but what makes it hard is that we don't store any data, don't have any model. There's no classes in this, in JavaScript.
Right.
So what we do, so if I don't do acceptance tests, what I would do instead would be an equivalent of controller specs, but in JavaScript, and we don't do controller because usually, so I need to send a request and see if I get, but of course I could write tests for each and individual method or function that I'm creating in each controller. So in Angular, everything is about the controllers, right? And then you have factories and services and directives and stuff like that. So I could test each and individual component, but I would. This is strictly theoretical, of course, because I haven't done it yet. But it would feel like even if stuff are working in isolation, which is good, each and every function you're supposed to do, I still would, I wouldn't feel at ease without any sort of integration test, to see if they're actually working together, which way acceptance test does for me, kind of thing, at least indirectly, because if it produces the result that I want to see on the screen, it means that everything along the way has actually, done its job. And perhaps it's a bit of a shortcut or something, but I would say that I would rather have that.
Sure.
I don't want to see you've seen that Titanic.
Unit test passing. Sure.
Every most of the parts, 99% of the parts of the Titanic.
Right.
But the ship still sank because of one simple fact that they had.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's sort of almost inevitable that basically the place that kills you is the bit that isn't covered by tests. But the question is like, how much effort does it take to get the full test coverage or to get the full acceptance things end to end? I mean, the other thing to do is also to say, that there's like when you're between a rock and a hard place, it's about which thing that you want to give up, and all the options should be on the table. And maybe the thing to give up on is in the CI or on the test coverage metric itself. And it may be that you say, right, I'm going to have an acceptance test, but that's going to be run, it's going to be kicked off manually on all the developers' machines, and we're going to say we're not going to have the CI for it in the first instance, or we say, well, I want to have the acceptance test, but that's going to be run, manually. I'm going to have my unit tests, but I'm going to be regularly checking. I mean, and then there's, the question of how long does it take to test manually and how frequently does it happen? Yeah, I think that the important thing is that all of those options should be on the table, and that you want to slice and dice. It's like asking. I mean, this parable that I was blogging about before with the monkey and the banana, right? The story about the monkey being caught with the coconut. Yeah. So when I think any situation when you find yourself in a bind because you're trying to get the thing that you want, it's then slicing the thing that you want into smaller pieces to work out, is there any part of this that I can throw away for the moment. Doesn't mean permanently, but maybe like for 2 sprints, and see what the pain associated with each part is, rather than constantly striving for the whole.
No, I already made that decision that CI is a bonus.
Okay, fair enough.
Test coverage is I would say that test coverage metrics are more important than continuous integration and deployment. But it's also a bonus. I can throw that out. I can focus on just testing testing locally. But manual testing is because I've done it. Yeah, I've been there. And I hated myself. I felt like a cheap whore sometimes. It's like, start the server, click the, fill in the credentials, click the button, do this, that. Sometimes you have to go through like 5 or 6 steps before you even want to test. And it's like, why don't they have acceptance tests? So, but there is another thing here, of course, that this Ionic client that we developed is a spike, and best practice tells us that we should throw that out and then start from scratch. And so I was there just a few days ago, but then I thought for myself that, listen, I cannot abandon the spike, because setting up the testing frameworks and everything is a learning, is a prototype experience. So I just continue working on this, trying to cover it with tests, to bring my knowledge up to a certain level, and then I will abandon this start a new phase. But I feel like a hypocrite by just saying that, because it's like, I know that if I bring this up to a good state with good test coverage, then the rationale for abandoning it and then starting anew will also disappear. And so I really don't know what to do, because if I start anew now, I'd not be able to take any steps forward.
Why not? Why not? Why would you not be, if you started afresh now?
Because if I want to follow the workflow that I instantly feel is the good one. Start with tests, and I do not know how to test it properly yet.
Okay. I see. You mean if you started again and tried to test drive it, then because you still aren't sure how to get the tests working in the new new setup. Yes, I see what you're saying. I mean, but I think that though I would argue that it may be the case that purely through starting again, even though you're not sure about how to test the existing one, that may be part of. I would hazard a guess that possibly part of the problem with testing the existing thing is because of the complexity of it. So if you started again from the very, very, very smallest thing, you'd be basically. I think that there's an additional benefit in terms of your increased understanding of how to rebuild the thing from scratch. There's kind of when you have the big system with like 50 components in it, and you doing this and doing that, whatever, it's impossible. There's always this sort of unknown sense of how much are all those 50 parts contributing, right? But when you start from nothing and you put one thing in, and you then see exactly what that one bit does, and so on. And I mean,
I totally see that, because that would make. I already know now that looking at the code base that I would make different decisions today than before and stuff like that. But the problem that I see is that I'm not even past the setup stage, But let me think about it. I think very good input, very good advice there. We have to make some sort of a decision soon. But apart from this project, I just want to see, can we bring? I mean, if we are building systems with 2 components like we do here, with one backend where RESTful API and everything, and then a client in Angular JS or whatever JS framework, can we bring the standard up to a certain level that we are used to in Rails, and again, Rails, it's a breeze, it's a smooth sailing kind of situation, with even, I mean, Cucumber Rails, when you run the scaffolder to set that up, it even includes the database cleaner. It does everything for you.
Right.
And then you're up and running, and so perhaps I took on too much. I was too ambitious because I wanted to have the same standard of in the tool setup that I was employing on the Ionic client. But it's been very frustrating couple of days.
Yeah. Well, but an important learning experience, and I think we have to take on too much to learn our limits. You know, it's you know, otherwise, I mean, you know, I think there's this bouncing process where you take on more and then you kind of pull back and you do less, and then as you get gaining confidence, you do more and more and more, and then at some point you're going to have to trip your limit. Right? That's, you know, you're not always going to you can't spend your entire life being conservative, can you? I mean, you've got to occasionally take a risk and say, well, you know, this has gone so well so far. Okay, this is a certain degree of unknown, but let's see. And then, you know, I mean, I think we've been bitten by that as regards, you know, making pair programming mandatory in the course. Go on.
There's some guests at the door, I guess.
Right. But yeah, I was just going to say the other thing. I was say the other advantage of a restart is that there are new people who might start getting involved in the Project Unify, and for their understanding of how things work, being involved in building something up from scratch is potentially very valuable for them. Even if the next thing becomes Spike Mark II, you know, their involvement in building something up from scratch, I think, increases their ownership, increases their understanding of the different moving parts. And anyway, so see how you go.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah. So then my side. So basically, yesterday, investigating other issues with the autograder. At the very least, we're now exposing the strange errors. I mean, you just, it's like whack-a-mole. You know, it's like I've fixed the autograder, so it now shows the kinds of errors that are happening behind the scenes for the feature grader components. But then, of course, people are now discovering that the system runs differently behind the scenes than what they've got running on C9. And anyway, but I think the deadline of the course is it today? I think is it the 19th today? Yes, I think it's the last deadline for submission today. So I think I'm not going to try and make extensive changes to the autograder. I spent most of yesterday afternoon updating, giving overrides on peer review, the peer review related pair programming. We've got a wealth of pair programming videos. I mean, I'm excited about the possibility that the next run we can have really, we you know, with a lot of work we can of curating the videos. We can have potentially some excellent training on, you know, like different styles and approaches to pair programming. And then so today I've got local support client meeting and need to sort of like clear the decks for that, get that sorted out, make everything's put to bed because I'm off to Japan on Thursday. So I would love there to be time for programming on website 1 and improving the performance, but I'm not sure it's going to happen before I go away. That's it from me, I guess.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Anything else we need to work out?
Just this guy on Slack, you know, Arun Bach Singh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you know, perhaps I overdid it. I tried to be as polite as possible in the Slack channel. He cross-posted the same question to you. I don't know if you saw that because I think he removed it now about his submission to the MOOC.
Oh yeah, I mean I was just replying to his where did he cross-posted it into general?
He cross-posted in multiple channels, so I just asked him that asking a personal question in multiple channels is not cool. You know, if this is a MOOC related question, place where you can ask for support, and he went on and stuff like that. But
which channel did he go on in?
So I'm having a discussion with him in random, but I know that he posted general AV community talk and some other channels. Since then he removed those posts. No trace of them. So the funny thing here is just to we have we are here right now, right? And he posted, the last post was then was posted at 10:21 a.m. which is just like 20 ago. Well, we've been around since then, so he could have joined us in this stand-up. That's the question. And the reason why he's not doing that is beyond my comprehension.
No. Well, you know, I mean, I think you and I know that this is a mechanism for addressing issues, but I think that's not necessarily clear to other people. I mean, I can, you know, not that I'm taking his side. I mean, I get very frustrated with people, you know, like kind of doing this. I mean, he's done it several times before, and I have spoken to him before about saying.
I don't care about this guy, to be honest, you know, because I haven't seen him on pair programming with us or contributing to any code.
No.
Yeah. He's asking Agile Ventures to be more supportive, which, of course, in my world is what you know. what you put in is what you get out, basically.
Right. I mean, if this was a paid service for him, I mean, you know, I think that basically, as far as I know, he's basically involved in the MOOC, and he's doing pair programming in the MOOC. I think that there's an issue of, you know, but people do the edX, and maybe he may be even a verified. He may be paying edX for the verified certificates. And in edX, we ask, you know, people to sign up to. We tell them for pair programming, sign up to Agile Ventures, and you know, get involved. So they're maybe treating it as an extension of, I'm paying it. edX is providing a service. Or I'm paying edX for a service, and Agile Ventures should be providing, you know, more support. But I will maybe explain that to him in random, and we will see. But then, of course, however much you explain things to people, some people are just, you know, crazy. So
basically, what he was complaining about is that his verification on edX didn't pass. You didn't pass. So he's paying for a verified certificate.
Right.
Again, this question is removed right now, but for some reason his verification didn't pass, and that's
well, he left he's left that message is in the MOOC chat. And I've responded to him there saying, I don't know what you mean. Can you ask in the discussion forum, posting screenshots, etc. So I've kind of responded to him about that, and I will now leave it with me, and I will now take it up in random and try and explain to him the relationship between edX and Agile Ventures.
Then to yesterday's discussion in the Agile Ventures channel about private messages and stuff like that.
Yes,
I would say that what we would need our premium members to do to embrace is the stand-ups, you know, because you know, I would say that direct messages to Tansaku or to me or whatever are like a private conversation, you know, which we can have before and after stand-up, you know, because again, it's time-consuming to write. There are certain things that you and I can discuss in like 30 seconds or 1 minute, you know. If it's private, we can take it before stand-up or after, right? But if it's of a general nature, we can discuss them here. But if you want to engage in the same conversation, but writing it, you know, that's much more time-consuming. So just as an input, I would say that opening up direct messages or you know, the possibility for them to ask private questions it's a potential. It's a slippery slope, because it would get, you know, you would get overwhelmed by that, and then so would I probably. You know, it depends, of course, how many private members we have. But if we can, you know, get them to join the scrums and the hangouts, it's much better, I would say.
I certainly hear what you're saying there. I think there's a lot of things I could say, but I think probably I won't say them now. But yes, but I very much appreciate your input in the mentors thing, and I guess I'm gonna my plan is to kind of try and pull all those threads together and continue the discussion, not making any quick decisions.
All right. I talk to you later, brother.
All right, fantastic. Have a good day, Thomas. Bye for now.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.